Alright, look, I'm no climber. I'm a taller guy, and while I'm a more reasonable, like 75 kilos or 170 pounds now, I could carry 100 kilos or 220 pounds without appearing too big. I was never going to be a featherweight, and when the gradient kicks, I'm completely out of my element. With that in mind, gravity is the best personal trainer, so let's kick our own butts, shall we? Let's start off with, in my opinion, the best area in the city for climbing, the Bayview extension, and with the Bayview climb itself. Strava clocks this in at a measly 3.9% over 1.5 kilometers, but don't let that fool you. There's a little dip in the middle that skews these figures. The climb is longer than most in the city, and is nice and sustained between the dips. With a wide shoulder that exists for much of the hill on both sides, this is a fun ride either up or down and has a lot of surrounding hills. This is a solid C tier. At the base of Bayview is Pottery Road, which is a shorter climb, but the gradient kicks much harder, 410 meters at 8.9%, with a spike over 12%. The climb is fully protected from the road, making it a safe place for newer climbers to learn how to hate themselves. This gets a C as well. Just a stone's throw away is a more hidden beast, Beechwood. It can be reached through the Dawn Recreational Trail between both Bayview and Pottery. At 510 meters at 6.8%, it can seem like an easier go than Pottery, but the gradient spikes over 12% for longer, making it more loathsome than its neighbor. This also gets a C. Moving a little further north, but still using the Dawn, we can get to the Crestview climb, where Lawrence Avenue East ends. A shorter climb at 460 meters, it has a bit more oomph at 8.8% average gradient, with a sustained 13 to 16% section that will prompt riders to get out of the saddle if they didn't bring their dinner plates. While the climb is straight and short, it's beautiful and secluded, and a loop of the bridle path is a good way to add some distance. This gets a B, but only just. Staying in the Dawn, we get to a nasty bit of business, Redway Road. Not particularly accessible unless on a mountain bike, but a lot of pedestrians have taken over the nearby trails. This climb does take some planning to get to, and it isn't worth it. A 13.1% average gradient over a stingy 300 meters will have you regretting that detour to the Loblaws right quick. 18 and 19% gradients right near the end will have you playing the keep traction game right when your brain checks out. This is a solid B tier climb. Alright, let's leave the Dawn for now and head to where the real climbing exists within the city limits, out east. There's no skirting around this piece of work, since it's widely regarded as the toughest in the city, Brimley Road, going into the Bluffs.
Thanks, Dad.
I grew up near this sucker and never really knew how it compared to the rest of the city. Both long and steep, Brimley runs for 1.31 kilometers at an average of 6.6%, but it kicks right off the bat at 15% and doesn't really let you catch your breath until near the top, where it becomes more forgiving. This is a solid A-tier climb and would be the undisputed best in Toronto if it wasn't for Gates Gully. This hill is often overlooked, and that's because it's gravel, fairly hard packed. It still has some washout after rainfalls, which means wider tires are needed to tackle this brute. Located near the Bluffs, it can be accessed from the Ravine Drive Bellhaven area. It's 1 kilometer long at 8.8%. It's steeper than Brimley, and almost as long. Couple this with the loose surface, and the gradient spikes in excess of 20%, and the argument can be made that this, not Brimley, is the toughest climb in the city. The hill on the other side of the Doris McCarthy Trail, by Galloway, is also fun. Sort of. This is a definite A tier. Staying east, but heading north, we can check out one of the worst gradient spikes in the city. Twyn Rivers Road straddles the Scarborough-Pickering border and crosses through the Rouge. The worst climb is on the Scarborough side. At first you'll be riding through some beautiful scenery, especially in the fall, but once you cross the graded bridge, you're faced with a wall. It's short at 330 meters, but features a sustained gradient that exceeds 20%. If you make it to the top, you can look behind and over your shoulder to see your soul collapse next to the street sign that indicates the 30% spike in gradient. I want to give this an A tier, but it's too short, and drivers typically aren't courteous in the area, so it gets a B. What about the West End, I hear you say? Well, to be honest, the climbing in the West End is much more limited, at least within the city. Spanish Hill, which is a combination of Ellis Park Road and Olympus Avenue, is nice. It has a fake switchback that averages 7.9% over 420 meters. Gradient stays in the double digits for a while, and it's near Hyde Park for those that prefer to ride there. For that, it gets a C. But everything else in the West? There are some good hills in the Humberside, Babby Point area, but much are too short or do not feature enough of a sustained gradient or gradient spike to make it much further up the list. Humberview is short. Humber Crest from the Old Mill Lot is a possible argument for a C tier. Poplar Plains in the Annex is a common mention, but it's not quite there for me.
That's pretty nasty.
The Thorncliffe climb out of the Dawn is also worth mentioning, but there are harder hills around it. So just D tier for all of these. Okay. Why no S tiers?
One broom tall.
Simple. Toronto is flat, relatively speaking. In the grand scheme of things, Brimley and Gates Gully would barely register as a bump in the cycling world. If I ever get the chance, I'd like to test the legs out on something truly alpine, and not just in Zwift. So I have to leave some room at the top, right? So what do you think of this list? Let me know if I missed your favorite climb in the comments. Maybe I'll pay it a visit in the future video.